Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Change of Shift podcast. I am your host, Sean. This week's episode is a little different. Interviewing John Haws from NRSNG.com. Interview was riddled with tech issues. My internet connection was not stable in any way. Had to reconnect with John on 3 separate occasions. Had to try and splice and weave this interview the best way I could. Hopefully you'll still enjoy it. I think you will. John talks about his journey into nursing as well as his website and online community, NRSNG.com. Even with all the tech issues, we still get to learn a great deal about John and his journey as well as his online community, the NRSNG.com, which is making huge waves on the internet. Hope you'll enjoy it. Hope you'll tolerate some of the pauses. As usual, all of my returning guests, all of my returning fans, thanks for joining me. And for all of my new listeners, if this is your first episode, please stick around because this is not the norm. Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoy the interview. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Change of Shift podcast, where nursing meets the internet. I am your host, Sean Dent. The goal of this podcast is to solve problems, review topics, and share actionable information that encompasses the professional and personal lives of healthcare professionals and nurses. You can subscribe, download, and listen while we discuss current events, impactful stories, and invaluable lessons from the front lines of healthcare. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to all of my repeat customers and my repeat fans, my loyal fans, as well as my new listeners. Thanks for joining. Thanks for hitting the listen button. So, as the title suggests, we have a guest on our show today. Our guest is Mr. John Haws. He is a fellow nurse, hoorah, who runs a small business as well as works as a Neuro ICU nurse. He runs a website called NRSNG.com, and that would be the word nursing without the vowels. I think we're going to have to talk to him about that one for a while. He's an ICU nurse. He's had previous businesses, not in healthcare, but has owned previous businesses. He created this website. Now I'm reading this verbatim from his website. Is that he got sick and tired of the lack of education in our profession. He got tired of the, here's your material, spit it back at you, see what you can remember or not remember, and by the way, we're going to test you on all of it. So he's been an ICU nurse, he's been a charge nurse, preceptor, code team nurse, and a mentor to nursing students and new nurses. He opened up what he's calling the playbook to nursing school and providing easy to understand materials, cheat sheets, and study tools to help you reach your goal to be an RN. Some impressive stats from his website, and this was only just for this month, or should I say the last stats that are current for the month of January. He's got over 50,000 followers between all of the social media websites, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. He has a podcast also named SRNG, NRSNG. Let me get that right. He's had over 540,000 downloads, 85,000 downloads per month. And he also runs a blog on his website where he has over 50,000 blog subscribers. Can you say, holy cow? John, welcome to the show.
What's up, Sean? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, those are some impressive stats, my friend.
Appreciate it.
You've been working hard.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do. It's trying to get the message out there, and like you said, that's kind of the big thing that we're trying to do here. Is just nursing school is the most frustrating experience of my life, and I think we're just trying to make it a little easier for everybody else.
What? Frustrating? Come on.
Yeah, come on. Nobody ever says that, right? Yeah.
No.
It's easy. It's
nobody seems to grasp the concept until they either meet, greet, or actually experience it themselves. It can't be that hard. Come on, it's just nursing school.
It's just nursing school, right? It's just a 2-year degree if you want. Yeah.
No
it can't be that bad.
So I've kind of given a brief overview of what I have learned from the internet and our brief interactions that we've had. Oh, by the way, he's also on Snapchat, my friends. For those of you who know
Figured
me
that
or
out.
follow me anywhere, is that I'm heavily into Snapchat these days, and John's also out on Snapchat. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the same handle, NRSNG. Is that correct?
I think on Snapchat it's NRSNG com, like
Okay, okay,
.com. Yeah, a couple of the
okay.
NRSNGs were taken, I think, on Twitter and Snapchat, so we had to get a little
See,
creative
they
there.
already have figured you out.
That's right.
So fill in the blanks here. What can you tell us about yourself that I haven't already explained to my audience? What did John do before he became a nurse?
Sure, awesome. Yeah. So before became a nurse, I'm kind of, I guess you say non-traditional, not in the big sense of the word, but I had a job in business. I just hated it. Would go to work every day and just felt incredibly soul crushing. You sit behind a desk, you type in some numbers, you go to a meeting Monday to Friday, and then it's back to the same grind. Friday at 5 p.m. you go home, you get 2 days to yourself, and then you go back to it. And so I'd looked into nursing a few times throughout the years leading up to this, and in college, and just never really, there's that stigma out there in nursing with guys, and I just never thought that I could be a nurse. It just never really crossed my mind. And then I had a buddy in medical school, and I was talking to him about it. I was like, should I do medicine? He's like, you know what, man, if I had known about CRNA, I would have done nursing from the start. He says, I would have done that way before medicine. And so I started looking at CRNA. I was like, man, that looks like a pretty sweet gig there. So that even then, like it was 2 years or so before I was like, okay, I can do this, And so I started applying to nursing school, got all that done, and then still kind of backed out of it at the last minute and took another job in the corporate world. And that's where all that happened, where I just had to kind of just give up in the corporate world and decided to do nursing and went full into it. So moved the family across the country, went into nursing school, had a couple kids during nursing school, and and now we're back in Dallas. I do Neuro ICU. I have a son, Taz, who's 4, and a daughter, Kai, who is 2, and then my wife, Sandy, and we have a little life here in Dallas, and it's great. I love nursing, and we were talking before the show started that one of the best things about nursing that really kind of wins out over anything else I've done in the past is the ability. You start full time at 3 days a week. Pick your schedule, pick what works for you. You can plan your life around it, and then you can kind of adjust from there. You can go weekender, you can go nights, you can go PRN, you can go one. And it's just even just the scheduling abilities with nursing beat anything else I've ever done. So I really love it for sure.
So if you're crazy enough, you can actually hold down 2 or 3 nursing jobs. And I know a few crazy individuals out there that have done that work a full-time in one job and 2 part-time or 2 PRN jobs, working a weekend a month at a job. And those PRN jobs can be very lucrative.
Yes.
If you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, because now I before I started going just PRN, I'm doing just like 1 day a week. But before that, I was doing weekender where I was just Friday, Saturday nights. And I was making more doing those 2 days than I was the 3 days before. And it allowed me to kind of start this NRSNG thing and kind of get that rolling. So yeah, lots of options with nursing. It's incredible.
It's a great segue into promoting the profession to others. It could be anybody, or we could hone in on the men out there since we're still so underrepresented. And
Yes.
from what we got to get above the 10%. We're still only at
somehow
10%. So that could be a great way to promote the profession, is that you can work a full-time job and still have a life.
Absolutely. You don't get that anywhere else. And it's not like we make a killing as nurses, but you make a decent living and you get to have a life and you get to have hobbies and be a person, It's incredible.
If I'm not mistaken, I read a blog post, an early blog post of yours, that you actually broke down what you made as a nurse from did to this, and I picked up this much overtime and I did this much more, and I worked these shifts, and I think at the end of the blog post you were, if I'm not mistaken, quoted like 70 grand.
Yeah, and that was my first, and so that might not seem like a lot to someone in Texas, or in California or New York or whatever, but in Texas that's a great living. And so that was my very first year out of school, where in my business job, I was making, I think, $37,000 a year. And then my first year out of nursing school, we made $72 or something $1,000, and I was home with the kids, and got to go to the grocery store on Tuesday afternoons when everybody else was working. So huge. Yeah. I mean, I doubled my salary just like that, and it was kind of picking up shifts and paid off a ton of my student loans. And I mean, it's incredible. It just really is.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand that part is that I'm with you. I'm in the same boat. I can't work a Monday through Friday job. I tried it once in my life, and it was the most energy sucking time of my existence on this world. Is you spend more time recuperating from the week than enjoying the week, and you work 5 days and you have 48 hours to do whatever it is you didn't get done. And then during the week, it's just a vicious circle. Man, I was in the worst health I ever was when I was working Monday through Friday. So I don't know how these collar and tie workers do it Monday through Friday. It's probably why I'll never be a manager.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like they're like, you thinking about management, John? I'm like, no, I don't want to even do that. That's exactly why I left. The corporate. That's not me at all, for sure. Yeah.
So that's awesome. You are the common now. I don't think that many nurses that we know actually graduate high school and go right into nursing school. I don't think that's very common these days. I'm finding more and more and more of the returning to school kind of student and nurse. Sure, they still exist out there, your traditional student, but everybody I know is the non-traditional. And what I mean by non-traditional is that it's their second choice.
Right.
Maybe it took another 6 months or a year. For you, it took a many years. For me, it took a decade. It doesn't matter, but it becomes a second choice. And that second choice, you say to yourself, what was I thinking? I should have done this a long time ago.
And that's why I have a hard time even calling myself non-traditional anymore, because it seems like more and more people that reach out to me, it's like, I'm the average, graduating at 30 isn't weird for nurses anymore at all.
No, I'm actually talking to these younger nurses. Like, I don't know how I would have functioned as a nurse at that age. So I give them a lot of credit. I really do, because you and I have a little bit of life experience under our belt before you jump into this role. And this role, as you have already stated, is not easy.
No, it's not. It's really not. And you're right. I think that managers see that in some of these older grads, and I think they really appreciate that like I had the kids and I had some of that life experience, because there's no way I could have handled this at 20. I mean, the stress with it, the seeing death and just everything there is with nursing, I couldn't have done it that young, for sure. Yeah.
So on the one hand, I have a lot of respect for them for being able to do it. On the other, on a lot of hands, I get really jealous too. So, so you talked about your journey about having to take it. It took a couple tries to convince yourself to actually become a nurse, but you still didn't actually tell us why nursing.
Oh, yeah. So why nursing? And I'm going to be honest here, right? Because, a lot of people give the answer because I love people so much, that, and I'll be honest. I mean, that wasn't my primary reason for it. My primary reason for it really was scheduling. I mean, I really wanted to be home with my family more. And that was a huge thing. The second thing really came down to, I have this deep passion for anatomy and physiology. I just love it so much. And I realized quickly that like medical school wasn't for me, and that whole route of 12 years, and that just wouldn't work for me. And so I looked at PA school, and that kind of, I fizzled out with that quick too. And then nursing kind of came up, and that's when I toyed with it, where this is where I could work in healthcare, be around the anat and phys and the diseases and see all that, and study my passion every day and be home with my family, and the money's enough to take care of kids. So I guess those three reasons, like loving pathophys, scheduling, and then being able to take care of a family,
That's probably the most honest answer I've heard in a long time. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, but when it comes down to it, I do love my patients, and I've had experiences that have changed my life, and I share some of those every now and then. But when it came down to it, I mean, that wasn't my primary reason.
No, but I think you've hit the nail on the head, is that everybody wants to give the cookie cutter answer of,
sure,
I want to help people.
Yeah.
And I would much rather hear a genuine answer of, I want to make money, because you can make, if you play your cards right, you can make money, and you can have the scheduling, you can have everything that you talked about. But the caveat being is that you better be willing to accept what we do.
Yes.
Because it's not some easy transition. You got to put some blood, sweat, and tears into it. And the job that we do on a daily basis sometimes really sucks.
It really does.
Really sucks. So you got to be able to live with the suck factor, I guess. Is that the way of saying it? Because there's nothing wrong with your answer. I love the fact that it's so genuine because there's nothing wrong with that.
And I think that maybe that's part of the reason that it took me so long to get into it too, is because I knew, what nurses did day to day. I knew it wasn't this picture that's painted sometimes of being perfect and patients give you hugs and kisses all the time. And so I knew there was going to be the wiping butts and the patients yelling at you and the management. And so I think I had to get myself to a point that I could deal with the worst case scenario. And then once I could get over that, it was like, the passion for everything else takes over.
That's awesome. I think that's why you're so successful in what you're doing right now, is because you're honest and genuine. And that's
appreciate that.
Rare. It's very rare. So it's been a privilege. To have crossed paths with you.
It is.
And by the way, I can tell that your love for A&P shows because you share it on Instagram too. For those of you who haven't found John on Instagram yet, you need to go check out his Instagram account because he shares some pretty gruesome stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're a nurse, there are so many gruesome things that we find pure joy in, and I guess you have to walk in our shoes to kind of understand that. Is that sure, we don't want our patients to suffer in any way, but when we see some and I'm a trauma nurse,
yes,
so whenever I see a nasty trauma, it's like, ooh, you have that dichotomy of I'm excited, but wow, that really has to suck.
That's too bad. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Too bad for you.
Yeah, because it gets your gears turning. Like, how would I take care of this
Absolutely.
patient? What's going to be the first thing? What are we going to do? And it gets you pumped up.
Good. So you talked about what brought you into the profession, and then I think it's pretty self-explanatory what you love about the profession, but what don't you like about the profession? Everybody has that one thing that just gets under our nail, because there's a lot of them, but just pick one.
There's a lot of them. I'll pick the one thing that everyone that I work with knows is that I have a massive gag reflex for poop. I hate poop, and I hate everything. I hate everything about it, and to me it is the worst thing of the profession. It really is.
John, you have 2 children. How can that be so?
No, that's what people say too. It's like I gag when I change my own kids' diapers, and that's the honest truth. I can't do it. I'll do throw up and spit and everything else. I'll do blood and guts, but the poop I can't. I mean, I can double mask. I can put whatever underneath my nose, and nothing works for me. So
I'm gonna have to find it because there is a video of a dad, and I think the dad's a serviceman, like a police officer. Mm-hmm. He's in his uniform, either getting ready to go to work or coming from work, and he's changing the diapers on his baby. And the smell is so bad that you hear him doing the it's that, and he watches his face, and I'm picturing you doing that.
That's exactly what I do.
I'm gonna try and find that and post that to your Facebook page.
Working in the Neuro ICU, a lot of my patients aren't awake enough to know that I'm gagging as I'm trying to change them, so that works out well for me. But
that's a perfect segue. I use the segue a lot, but this is a perfect segue. Is that I'm a trauma nurse by nature. Trauma is in my blood. I really have worked in every avenue of nursing. That's every awesome. Avenue of the ICU. I've worked in surgical, cardiac. I've worked in neuro, rehab. Take your pick. And neuro by far, and I still do it. I work in a trauma neuro ICU right now as a nurse practitioner, and there's pieces of true neuro ICU. I just can't do it, man. I just can't do it. So why neuro?
Well, so I think what you're saying is very common. I think most people hate neuro, just hate it flat out, because it is very different. And I mean. So why neuro? Well, I mean, an honest answer for that again is it's the job I got out of school. But then I really did come to love it. I think that what I really appreciate about it is, I mean, you get this in any sort of trauma ICU, but in neuro trauma ICU, like with these massive strokes where patients will come in and they'll say, grandma was eating dinner with us tonight. Like she was talking to us and just fine. And now, the physician sitting here telling them, or the mid-level practitioner is telling them, this is it. My suggestion is we extubate and we let her pass. there's something about that. It's not like this morbid thing, but there's something about being there with that family in that moment that to me makes life more precious, I guess. And it makes me appreciate life a little bit more. And while it's hard to deal with sometimes, there's moments that have definitely made me just appreciate life much more than I had probably before. I think I would in another setting, I guess.
Yeah. No,
I
that
don't
makes
know.
complete sense.
I don't know if
It
that.
takes no, that's a great answer because it takes a very special person to work in neuro ICU. There's a lot of injuries that happen in that particular area of ICU that are devastating, and
Mhm.
they're acute. They're not subacute. They're not clinical. It's exactly what you described. You're completely healthy, and it doesn't matter what age that person is. It can happen to
Just like that.
anybody when
Yeah.
it comes to strokes, when it comes to the traumatic brain injuries that we see. You got to have a certain level of what I like to call an emotional bank. If
Yes,
you don't have the emotional bank to do it, it'll wreck you.
absolutely. And I do
You
think that's
know,
true in any sort of critical care setting. Or, I mean, I haven't worked med surg except in school, so I don't know. But in critical care, I think that a lot of nurses, you have kind of a couple ways of dealing with it. You either become an alcoholic or you find a way to deal with it healthy, And so I think having my wife, she works ICU as well. She's a dietitian. And so just having that where I can kind of share some of the stories, I think helps tremendously. But when I first started, it really beat me down where I would come home just physically ill sometimes, just of like the stuff you see and not being able to get it off your chest. And I think over time you kind of just, it's not that I care less by any means. It's just that I've learned like life is fragile and how can I apply that to my life, I guess.
yeah,
Uh, yeah.
there's a lot of nurses that are out there that are asking me those questions now is how do I not how do I not let it beat me up? How do I not bring it
Mhm.
home? How do I not get burned out? Because this is truly, in my professional opinion, this is one of the sources of burnout is
Mhm.
not developing the proper coping mechanism. You're not just you can't be a robot. You're a human being caring for another human being at their most vulnerable moment.
Mhm.
Whatever that moment is, you have to stand steadfast. You can't break down and cry with them and hiccup cry tears. You have to find it in you to remain professional in some way.
Right.
Sure, we all end up hugging the patients and the families, and I've actually told other family members that so and so died while I'm crying. I've done
Yeah.
it before, but you still have to maintain that strength that they can't. And
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but where do you make that transition? What do you tell your new nurses? Because you're all about educating the newer nurse.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare for them? How do you tell them that this is reality and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with that?
Well, I think kind of like you said there, I think what people have a challenge with is the way I was taught in nursing school is that you're not supposed to develop this relationship with these patients. And it's almost taught like you're not supposed to care. And I think there is a big difference between uh, caring and letting that affect how you take care of someone. Because, like you said, I've cried with families before. I've sat there in their rooms and but that's what I think makes a good nurse stand out to the patients is they can see that I care, but you know what? At the same time, I can sit there and I can do the hard thing. I can do the compressions, or I can say, the best thing is to stop. And that's really hard. So I guess what I tell new nurses, I do tell them find someone that I think the biggest thing for me has been having someone to talk to about it that understands a little bit, even if it's another nursing buddy or a boyfriend or girlfriend, a family member, somebody that understands something about seeing death all the time that you can talk to and say, look, I had a really hard shift. And then I think what needs to happen more on nursing units is we kind of, I mean, you've been in trauma ICU longer than I have, but I think what happens a lot is after these deaths and after these codes, nurses kind of resort to like joking, and it's more like we just let it roll off and we move on. I think there does need to be some sort of, and it's hard because there's not time, but there's some sort of way of saying, look, that was hard. Let's talk about it. Let's debrief. Let's go through how everybody's feeling. And I don't know where you find the time to do that, but even maybe just in an email from the manager of, if anybody's struggling with this, let me know. And But I think just getting it out there in the open and expressing how you're feeling would be a huge help for many people. Because a lot of people I don't think have what I had at home, where I could come home from a shift and talk to my wife for an hour. And so I think they do resort to bad habits, to eating or to alcohol or to whatever it is. And then that ultimately leads to burnout. So having a way for people to talk, whether that's on the unit or with a friend or a spouse or whatever.
Beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. I attribute that very same thing to my success for being able to be an ICU nurse for 10 years, is that you and I share the same bond that my wife's a nurse. So my wife and I actually met and got married right out of nursing school.
Oh, cool.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we made a deal way back then, is that if you're going to bring it home, you have this much time to talk about it. Whatever you want to say, get it off your chest and then move on, because it's not just, you have to make sure you maintain it as a job. It doesn't become your life, because when it becomes part of your life and you don't know how to deal with it, then like you said, you acquire some pretty bad habits. So that's awesome. I'm glad that there are other people and other nurses out there that feel that talking it out is absolutely the best thing you can do to manage it in the best way you can.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you, but disagree with you when it comes to the humor. I think in the ICU world, it's a great coping mechanism. And I've said it before that in the ICU, we have some pretty dark humor.
Yeah.
Really dark humor. But the dark humor keeps people from going for that bottle, for that drug or something else. And if that's what it takes, then I will encourage the dark humor, because those nurses come back to the battlefield and do it again the next shift without having it affect them professionally. I don't go home with them, so I don't know how they handle it when they go home. So we talked about you, quote unquote, falling into Neuro ICU. So as a sidebar, if you had to choose, would you still go with neuro, or would you choose a different?
If I had to do it all again, I would probably do surgical or trauma.
Yeah, I think you would, because of the whole anatomy physiology.
Yeah, you get to see much more. Neuro, it's so few diseases you actually get to see. So
yeah, I mean, in Neuro ICU, there's the core like 4 or 5 diseases that you always see, and then every so often you get a Guillain-Barré or those are pretty straightforward, the way that we treat those. So.
Right. So yeah, I mean, because I would really I enjoy the traumas and that's why I like the role of like being the code team nurse kind of thing, is I get to float between the different ICUs and kind of just play around and help out with other nurses, and I like that.
So when you say code team nurse, so anytime there's do you guys call it code blue or condition A? What do you guys call it?
Code blue, yeah.
So you go to all the code blues?
Yeah, so the actual name of it, they call it a SWAT nurse at our hospital. Yep. Okay, yeah, I didn't know how many people use that.
Oh, it's all kinds of different names.
So I'm just the available nurse to help out in the ICU, and then you go to all the codes, yeah.
Gotcha.
And I love that. That's like the dream job for me, because you're all around.
There was a hospital that I worked in that was way before condition A's and stuff like that started. They when JACO first put out that recommendation in 0506, it was the RAT team. It was the resource. I forget what it was called. Resource something team. I can't remember what it was. It was the worst name ever.
The worst name ever. I love the job, man. It's great because you don't have any patients assigned to you, and you're just floating around the hospital.
Yeah, the ICU nurse's dream job.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get down to the nitty gritty.
All right,
NRSNG.com. That is probably one of the most unique names I've seen out there, because I mean, anyone that's in business, anyone that's in marketing, anyone that is looking to get attention from other nurses, is that you need the word nurse in there somewhere. So tell me how the name was created.
I really wanted something that was really short, one word, something like that, and anything nursing, that's all gone already for domain names, obviously. And so I was just kind of thinking how in social media, a lot of times people will just take out the vowels and type like that, and checked it out. NRSNG was available and went with it. So I don't know if it's my favorite choice, but that's where we're at now, and we'll kind of so we're just kind of going that route for a
Yeah,
little
but you,
while.
you spin it pretty good because
Yeah,
I don't know where, I don't know if it's on your website or not, but I know that you've said it in multiple places that it's just nursing without the vowels.
yeah, and so I just say it like that because it is hard for people to remember what it is, how it is, but yeah, just nursing without the vowels, and that works.
Yeah. And now, how long has that website been in existence?
Um, so everything with all of this really started October of 2014. Um, and I kind of like I think I had the domain maybe before that, but didn't really get going with everything until probably about last October or last summer, maybe late last summer or
Okay.
2014. Yeah.
So, how long had you thought of the website and the concept before you went from concept to creation?
So I even started in nursing school. I even had a little website called Nursing Student Nursing School Study Aids, I think is what it was. And I would upload some of my notes and things that I had drawn up there, and that started to get attention and stuff. So I thought, well, and someday I'll probably do something more with the nursing. And when did we actually start going more with the NRSNG? I think it was when I kind of just learned how to do a podcast and kind of threw a couple up there, and it started to get some attention. So I kind of kept going with that. And prior to this, I'd been doing a little bit of internet marketing stuff, not nothing with nursing at all. And my fears with going into nursing was that I was going to have to be out there in front of it as the person teaching it, and I was afraid of putting myself out there. You know how YouTube comments are and
The haters.
the haters, and I didn't want to deal with the
Mm,
trolls, and I didn't want to put my name out there that much. Um, but one day I kind of sat down with my wife. I was like, I think that I could help a lot of people with this. I think there's a big need out there for people giving honest information and kind of talking about the frustrations that I had in school, because nobody really talks about what the frustrations are and how bad it is and how to deal with it. Um, and so I was like, I'm going to do this. Let's give it a year. Because at the same time, I was preparing for CRNA school. So I was doing GRE, I was doing CRNA,
okay. All right.
was getting all that stuff done. So I had all that done. I was going to start applying to schools. And then the podcast kind of started getting some attention. I was like, well, let's give this a year. Let's give it a year. And if it doesn't work in a year, I'm going CRNA. But then it kind of kept ramping up, and we really started getting that positive feedback that when I tell people my experience in nursing school, they're like, it's like you're talking to me,
Exactly.
and that kept me going.
I think that's hilarious is that you had tried your best not to be the face or behind it or you wanted it to be something that you ran from behind the scenes
Right.
and nurses need something relatable.
Mm,
They need a persona. They want the human being.
exactly.
It doesn't matter. I mean, there's some great companies out there that are offering the same things that you're offering, but they want a personal experience. And I think that's probably why they trust you.
Yes. And that's something, obviously you and I have been talking about the last month or so is about these people that are trying to get out there and get the nursing niche
I
that
was
have
hoping you'd mention
and I'll try to keep
it.
myself from spilling company and people's names, but it's very frustrating to me because there are people out there that are because internet marketing is a skill that you can learn, but
Yes.
nursing is so much more than that. And so there are people that are trying to get out there and kind of take advantage and use some of these tricks and tools to try to
All
just really
right.
screw with students, and
All
it ticks me
right.
off.
Well, I'm putting you on the hot seat. So then give me some ideas of what you're talking about. I know we don't want to start name dropping here, and you and I have had some conversations about particular names, and I have a list of red flags that I've created already in the short time that I've been really
Looking,
paying attention. But what are some of that's just maybe three things that you look at when someone is promoting a service to a nurse, and it's different for a lot of different
yeah.
reasons. What are three things that you would want to tell the new nurse, the seasoned nurse, any nurse out there that decides, "Ooh, let me try this internet thing.
Mhm.
Ooh, let me try this Instagram thing." What are three things that are red flags to make someone take pause?
I would look for the person's credentials. If they are not putting nurse, because it's illegal to pretend to be a nurse or a physician, and so you really can't do those things. People can fake pictures, they can fake things, but ask the company or the person directly who's creating your content. Are they a nurse? Where'd they go to school? Et cetera, et cetera. Because if they can't tell you those things, then either, I mean, they could lie to you, which hopefully they wouldn't do that, but if they can't tell you that they are a nurse, then they really don't have any business telling you how to be a nurse.
So let me
Yeah, make it clear.
define clarify what you mean by nurse.
They need to be an RN,
What if they're an
or
LPN?
LPN. I think LPN would be fantastic for creating content for LPNs.
Okay.
I don't know enough about the LPN exam and stuff to say how different it is from NCLEX RN.
So what about a CNA, a nursing assistant? They technically have nurse in their name.
I think a CNA should make material for CNAs for sure, because the job is very different from what an RN is doing. But yeah, look for someone who is doing your credentialed job.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let's do that. Like you would be perfect for RNs, for APRNs, for because you've done all those jobs.
Yeah.
And you know what it takes to do that and to study for that and to succeed. So look for someone who has at least what you're studying to become.
Okay.
I guess I would say that.
Okay, there's one.
There's one. Number two is really look around the website and see if there's pictures of actual human beings that are nurses and that there's contact information of some way. That there's a way that if there's an issue, you can email them, you can call them, you can get a hold of them. And I mean, you have a lot of internet experience and I have some, and you can do little things to find if people are stealing images from places. Or one of the websites, I think that blog or that podcast that I went on, kind of a rant, what really called me to that website is I looked at the images of the About page, and they were images from like Russian brides websites, and Getty Images was their expert nurse came from some Russian bride website who had a name on 50 different websites of 50 different names. So make sure there's actual people behind what's happening there.
So you mean having their own pictures up? I mean, everyone's always worried about HIPAA. You're always worried about patient confidentiality, so you don't want to actually have pictures of your patients up there. So,
no, absolutely.
So you're talking in terms of, like, if I'm going to talk about me promoting NP stuff, maybe I should have a picture of myself versus a picture of someone from Russia.
Yes. And that's, I mean, put a picture of you, and that's like, you'll look at Nurse Bash, you look at you look at Nurse Mendoza, and these people, Katie Kleber, I mean, they're out there showing what they're doing. And you're right. You're not taking a video of you charting on a patient or you assessing a patient, but you're showing like, this is my day in my life. This is what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
Those would be the two biggest things. Third thing, see if the content matches up with what's medically sound in some of the journals that you're getting in these student nurse journals and these nursing journals, the medical journals. See that the content is actually matching up with what's real. Because people are throwing really cheap books up there on Amazon. They're throwing up really cheap YouTube videos on Amazon or on YouTube. And you can tell a lot of it's just keyword material.
What do you mean by keyword, John?
Good point. So in internet marketing and stuff, it's a keyword is, what are people searching for? What are they typing into Google to find? How to get a nursing job. And so if you find some of these YouTube channels and things, you'll find people that are how to get a nursing job in California, how to get a nursing job in Texas, how to get, and they're just trying to pump out a bunch of 2-minute videos. And if the videos aren't giving you any real actionable content that's going to help you in your career, kind of maybe skip on those types of people.
So your last point kind of brings up something in the back of my mind is, what about that brand new, I just got into nursing school. I haven't even started nursing school and I'm a go-getter. I'm going to go to the internet and find some quick tips and tricks. I'm going to pre-study so that I know what I'm doing, so that on the first day I don't look like an idiot. How would they know fake fact from fiction? Because you're talking about nursing student, nursing school journals and things like that.
Yeah.
They don't even know what a nursing school journal is yet. So, yeah. So that's a tough one. I'll let you think about that one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm excited for your article about this.
Yeah. So
because that is tough.
I've been waiting to talk to you about it because it's definitely put my radar up. It's disturbing for the ridiculous amount of technical issues that we had this evening.
That's how it goes,
this afternoon. So for those of you that catch this post-edit, I think John and I had to reconnect 4 times,
something like that,
because of horrible internet connection. I know that you have to go, John, so I have a ton more questions for you, but you're on a time constraint here. So for
We'll
those of you
reconnect
who still
again.
don't know where to find John, you can go out to the internet and type in NRSNG.com. Anywhere on the internet, all of his social media accounts are through his website. He's on Facebook, Twitter, he's on Instagram, he's on Snapchat, he's on YouTube, he has a podcast, he has a blog on his website. He's everywhere. Nursing without the vowels. It's about as easy as it gets to remember. John, do you have any final words for our audience out here?
The biggest thing I can say is don't give up. We all struggle with this, and I myself struggle some days. I'm sure Sean does too. And just don't give up. You wake up tomorrow and you do it again. And we've all been where you're at, and we're all going somewhere different. So keep at it.
Awesome. So I do have 4 more minutes of your time, so I'm going to press you. I have what I call rapid fire questions for all of my interview guests. So we're going to do 5 real quick rapid fire questions.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, here we go. First question: what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Your favorite movie?
Oh boy, a Tommy Boy comes to mind.
Love it. Favorite food?
Lasagna.
Oh, and this is an easy one, but what would you prefer when you on shift? Clogs or traditional tennis shoes?
Tennis shoes, man. Running shoes.
And then what is your most favorite piece of nursing equipment?
Always have your stethoscope. You'll be surprised how many people don't have it when it's needed.
Awesome.
So don't
John,
leave it
I'm
alone.
going to do some closing words here. You can sign off if you need to. For those of you that are just checking in or are catching the back end of this, we've been visiting and interviewing John Haws from NRSNG.com. John, thanks for hanging out with us.
Appreciate it, Sean.
Awesome. Thanks again to all my little fans who have made it out here, and welcome to all my first-time listeners for hanging out with me. If you like what you heard, be sure to tell somebody, anybody. Tell someone you liked it. Tell someone you hated it. Just tell someone. This has been the Change of Shift podcast, where nursing meets the internet. You can find us out on the internet at thechangeofshift.com. I have been your host, Sean Dent. You can find me out on the internet as well under SeanDent.com. Out on my website, I have the social media vault for all nurses across their career spectrum who are seeking guidance on how to succeed. John, as always, thanks for joining us. To those of you who are listening, as always, check your own pulse first.